Chapter 14, Hester and the Physician. Hester bade little Pearl run down to the margin of the water and play with the shells and the tangled seaweed. And we know that this is something that that Pearl often does, is playing with natural things, right? She plays with the trees, etc. Until she should have talked a while with the yonder gatherer of herbs. And we know that this is Chillingworth. So the child flew away like a bird. Really important natural imagery there, connecting her again to nature. And making bare her small white feet, went pattering along the moist margin of the sea. Here and there she came to a full stop and peeped curiously into a pool, left by the retiring tide as a mirror for Pearl to see her face in. So she's peeping curiously into nature and also seeing herself, which is very, very interesting that she is seeing herself in that particular natural thing, rather than how Hester saw herself in the armor that was in the governor's hall, which was not natural and really expanded the Scarlet Letter. So we're seeing a difference there. Fourth peeped at her out of the pool with dark, glistening curls around her head. Note that that's a contrast from the last chapter, contrasting her with Hester's covered or cut off hair. So recognize that that there is a difference there, that she still is a woman and still has this luxuriousness about her. And an elf smile in her eyes. The image of a little maid whom Pearl, having no other playmate, invited to take her hand and run a race with her. So again, that reaffirmation that she is outside of society, right? That she does not have friends to connect with. But the visionary little maid, on her part, beckoned likewise as if to say, "This is a better place. Come thou into the pool." And Pearl, stepping in, mid-leg deep, beheld her own white feet at the bottom. Here we've got white, but here it seems to be different from Dimsdale in some ways. Here this might be more purity rather than lack of blood. While, out of still a lower depth, came the gleam of a fragmentary smile floating to and fro in the agitated water. Meanwhile, her mother had accosted the physician. So we know that this is going to be somewhat confrontational based on this particular word. "I would speak a word with you," said she, "a word that concerns us much." "Aha, and it is Mistress Hester that has a word for old Roger Chillingworth," answered he, raising himself from his stooping posture. And so we see this stooping posture as kind of, remember that mind-body connection. And we also know that he is the devil now, so he's supposed to be kind of misshapen, even though he was misshapen before. "With all my heart. Why, mistress, I hear good tidings of you on all hands." So he is hearing that from the last chapter, what that A has changed to mean, that that A is able rather than adulterate now. "No longer than yestereve, a magistrate, a wise and godly man, was discoursing of your affairs, Mistress Hester, and whispered to me that there had been question concerning you in the council. It was debated whether or no, with safety to the common weal, yonder Scarlet Letter might be taken off your bosom." Wow, so much has changed that they are considering changing her punishment and removing her punishment. "On my life, Hester, I have made my entreaty to the worshipful magistrate that it should be done forthwith." So he is yet again still kind of advocating for her. "It lies not in the pleasure of the magistrates to take off this badge," calmly replied Hester. Notice now that her response to the letter is calm. Even though in the last chapter she was thinking about whether or not it was even worth being alive as a woman, it doesn't seem to have to do with her badge. She's recognizing a greater thing there. "Were I worthy to be quit of it, it would fall away of its own nature, or be transformed into something that should speak of a different purport." And this here is ironic because we know that it has. Because it's changed to A, able, right? So she is choosing now the punishment, even though society is not. So she has really owned this, and it's an internal punishment as the reflection of society, rather than the other way around. Nay, then, wear it if it suit you better, rejoined he. A woman must needs follow her own fancy. Which is interesting, because here it's not following her own nature, it's her fancy. Touching the adornment of her person. The letter is gaily embroidered and shows right bravely on your bosom. So now, yet again, there's this idea of bravery in holding it. All this while, Hester had been looking steadily at the old man and was shocked, as well as wonder-smitten, to discern what a change had been wrought upon him within these past 7 years. And that change that we're seeing is that devilishness, now that he has figured out that Dimmy is baby daddy, and he has he's grasped him now. It was not so much that he had grown older, for though traces of advancing life were visible, he bore his age well and seemed to retain a wiry vigor and alertness. So here we're wondering what's keeping him alive, so what is sustaining him? And we know that what's sustaining him seems to be revenge and that grasping of that particular idea. But the former aspect of an intellectual and studious man, calm and quiet, which was what she best remembered him, had altogether vanished. So he's no longer those things, and had been succeeded by an eager, searching, almost fierce. So this is kind of like that miner, right? Mining for that treasure. Eager, searching, almost fierce, yet carefully guarded look. It seemed to be his wish and purpose, and we know what that wish and purpose is, to mask this expression with a smile, but the latter played him false. So yet again, he can't hide the truth, his true emotions, and flickered over his visage so derisively that the spectator could see his blackness all the better for it, blackness of his soul. Ever and anon, too, there came a glare of red light out of his eyes. Yet again, those eyes and that glare of red light that we saw earlier. And so here it definitely is demonic. If the man's, as if the man's soul were on fire. Oh, hell, right? And kept smoldering duskily within his breast, connecting to his breast. So he does not have a scarlet letter on it, but it still seems to be a place. He's connecting that to show that he also is connected with guilt or a sin. Until by some casual puff of passion, it was blown into a momentary flame. And here we know that this passion potentially is not the good kind. This he repressed as speedily as possible and strove to look as if nothing of the kind had happened. In a word, old Roger Chillingworth was a striking evidence of man's faculty of transforming himself into a devil. If he will only, for a reasonable space of time, undertake the devil's office. So this is kind of that idea of what we do turns into who we are. This unhappy person had effected such a transformation by devoting himself for 7 years to the constant analysis of a heart full of torture, and deriving his enjoyment thence, and adding fuel to those fiery tortures which he analyzed and gloated over. So here, it's this needling of seeing what's hurting somebody else is what is burning his soul. The scarlet letter burned on Hester Prynne's bosom. So here we see that contrast, right? So we've got those two things contrasting right there. Here was another ruin, the responsibility of which came partly home to her. What you see in my face, asked the physician, that you look at it so earnestly. Something that would make me weep if there were any tears bitter enough for it. Oh, so she actually feels sad for him, actually, that he has given himself over to this particular thing. But let it pass. It is of yonder miserable man that I would speak. And we know that is Dimmy, right? "And what of him?" cried Roger Chillingworth eagerly, as if he loved the topic. Oh, he's obsessed, right? This is a man obsessed. And we've seen that obsessiveness before. And we're glad of an opportunity to discuss it with the only person whom he could make a confidant. So since both of them know, he's like, this makes it very, very special, because usually it has to be a secret, and now he can talk about his stuff openly. "Not to hide the truth, Mistress Hester, my thoughts happen just now to be busy with the gentleman. So speak freely, and I will make answer." "When last we spake together," said Hester, "now 7 years ago, it was your pleasure to extort a promise of secrecy." Notice that idea of extortion, that also in theory is a crime. "As touching the former relation betwixt yourself and me," and remember that promise was to not reveal who he actually is. "As the life and good fame of yonder man were in your hands, there seemed no choice to me, save be silent, in accordance with your behest. Yet, it was not without heavy misgivings." So this is intuition that something was going wrong, right? That she shouldn't do it. She had a feeling that she shouldn't. And that I thus bound myself. For having cast off all duty toward other human beings, and here that's society. Where did it go? "There remained a duty towards him. And something whispered me that I was betraying it." And that something is that intuition again. "And in pledging myself to keep your counsel. Since that day, no man is so near to him as you. You tread behind his every footstep. You are beside him, sleeping and waking. You search his thoughts. You burrow and rankle in his heart." Notice that repetition of "you." To recognize that it's a choice, and that it is repeatedly always there. "Your clutch is on his life, and you cause him to die daily a living death," which is potentially worse than a dead death. "And still he knows you not. In permitting this, I have surely acted a false part by the only man to whom the power was left to me to be true." So she is recognizing another sin against humanity, not against society, but recognizing that she has wronged a human being. "What choice had you?" asked Roger Chillingworth. "My finger, pointed at this man, would have hurled him from his pulpit into a dungeon, thence, peradventure, to the gallows." So recognizing that idea of extortion, that he has in fact given her no choice in order to save him from society's retribution. She has left him open to this one. It had been better so. So recognizing that that punishment is potentially better than this secretive revenge. "What evil have I done the man?" asked Roger Chillingworth again. "I tell thee, Hester Prynne, the richest fee that ever physician has earned from monarch could not have bought such care as I have wasted on this miserable priest." He's pretending that he's done good things. Isn't that ironic? "But for my aid, his life would have burned away in torments within the first 2 years after the perpetration of his crime and thine." So recognizing that his guilt would have killed him, would have led to death, that in theory he's done something good for this guy in not letting him die by the gallows or die from his own guilt, but keeping him alive in order to suffer. "For Hester, his spirit lacked the strength that could have borne up, as thine has, beneath a burden like thy scarlet letter. Oh, I could reveal a goodly secret. But enough! What art can I do? I have exhausted on him. That he now breathes and creeps on the earth is all owing to me." Note, though, that he's creeping on the earth. This is not the same as living, right? That he is surviving but not living. "Better he had died at once," said Hester Prynne, recognizing that difference. Yea, woman, you sayest truly, cried old Roger Chillingworth, letting the lurid fire of his heart blaze out before her eyes. So now he's letting that demon come out a little bit. Better he had died at once. Never did a mortal suffer what this man has suffered. This is like, you can just see the mwahaha stuff here. And all in the sight of his worst enemy. Oh, he's got this guy. He has been conscious of me. That's that intuition that he's ignoring, right? That heart that tells him that that he should be aware of and get himself away from him. He has felt an influence dwelling always upon him like a curse. He knew by some spiritual sense, for the Creator has never made another being so sensitive as this, that he knew that no friendly hand was pulling at his heartstrings, and that an eye was looking curiously into him, and we know Chillingworth's eyes see into that soul, which sought only evil. Oh, this is a self-recognition, isn't it? He knows this. He is saying that that what he's doing is evil. And found it. But he knew not that the eye and hand were mine. With the superstition common to his brotherhood. Oh, look at that. He's calling religion superstition. Which is a negative word. He fancied himself given over to a fiend, to be tortured with frightful dreams and desperate thoughts, and the string of remorse and despair of pardon, as a foretaste of what awaits him before the grave. And so he is assuming that he deserves this punishment, this terrible weight and eye that's looking at him, and this fiend, this demon, which is true. Like, he knows that he actually has been found by a demon. He just doesn't recognize that it's Chillingworth. But it was the constant shadow of my presence. And notice shadow. Okay, yet again, that darkness. So he is making him even dimmer. The closest propinquity of the man whom he had most vilely wronged. Oh, he still feels so wronged, this Chillingworth, 7 years later. And who had grown to exist by this perpetual potion of the direst revenge. So he's admitting, like, this is all the... Yea, indeed, he did not err. There was a fiend at his elbow. That fiend is me. A mortal man with once a human heart, not anymore, has become a fiend for his especial torment. The unfortunate physician, while uttering these words, lifted his hands with a look of horror, as if he beheld some frightful shape, which is himself, right? Which he could not recognize, usurping the place of his own image in a glass. It was one of those moments, which is actually interesting, this idea of reflection, that we can actually contrast with Pearl, because she has just seen her reflection, and the fact that they're so closely juxtaposed in the text recognizes that she sees herself and a playmate and stuff like that, whereas he sees only a demon. It was one of those moments, which sometimes occur only at the interval of years, when a man's moral aspect is faithfully revealed to his mind's eye. So this is that self-recognition. Not improbably, he had never before viewed himself as he did now. Hast thou not tortured him enough? Said Hester, noticing the old man's look. Has he not paid thee all? And recognize all. That's really kind of that soul more than anything. No, he has but increased the debt. Look at what revenge has done to him. He's hurt. He has, in theory, kind of won, but he sees it as a loss, and now that he deserves even more. So this revenge seems to be a circular and always increasing. Answered the physician, and he proceeded his manner lost, and as he proceeded, his manner lost its fiercer characteristics and subsided into gloom. Dost thou remember me, Hester, as I was 9 years agone? Even then I was in the autumn of my days, nor was it the early autumn. So he's recognizing that even then he was old, which we knew from the very beginning in her flashback. But all my life had been made up of earnest, studious, thoughtful, quiet years, bestowed faithfully for the increase of mine own knowledge. Knowledge, right? Has it helped him? No, not helped. It didn't get him to true understanding. Though this latter object was but casual to the other, faithfully for the advancement of human welfare. So he's doing this, human welfare is really society, not individuals, right? Potentially. No life had been more peaceful and innocent than mine. Few lives so rich with benefits conferred. Dost thou remember me? Was I not, though you might esteem me cold, nevertheless a man thoughtful of others, craving little for himself? Kind, true, just, and of constant, if not warm affections? These are all, he recognizes that he used to be good. Was I not all this? All this and more, said Hester. And what am I now? Demanded he, looking into her face. He seems to be kind of blaming her there. Looking into her face and permitting the whole evil within him to be written on his features. I have already told thee what I am, a fiend. Who made me so? Oh, so he is blaming Dimmesdale for turning him into this, as if this were not his own choice. Which is very, very interesting that he sees this as just something that that Dimmesdale, by his very being and existing, has turned him into this particular thing. It was myself, cried Hester, shuddering. It was I, not less than he. Why hast thou not avenged thyself on me? I have left thee to the scarlet letter, replied Roger Chillingworth. If that had not avenged me, I can do no more. He laid his finger on it with a smile. It has avenged thee, answered Hester Prynne. I judged no less, said the physician. Now, this is interesting that she is recognizing that it has done something. But remember, in the last chapter, it said that it has not done its office. It has not done what it's supposed to do. So even though she thinks it has, Hawthorne does not think that. I judged no less, said the physician. And now, what wouldst thou with me touching this man? I must reveal the secret, Hester answered firmly. He must discern thee in thy true character. What may be the result, I know not. But this long debt of confidence due from me to him, whose bane and ruin I have been, shall at length be paid. So she is going to repay him what she owed him as a human being from the beginning. So far as concerns the overthrow or preservation of his fair fame and his earthly state, and perchance his life, he is in thy hands. And he has been for 7 years. Nor do I, whom the scarlet letter has disciplined to truth, though it be truth, the truth of the red-hot iron, that's not self, right? That's that iron that he consistently uses is something that somebody else imposes on you. Entering into the soul, nor do I perceive such advantage in his living any longer a life of ghastly emptiness, that I shall stoop to implore thy mercy. Do with him as thou wilt. There is no good for him. So she recognizes no possibility of, no positive possibilities for poor Dimmy, but she's kind of choosing lesser of evils. No good for me, no good for thee. They are all doomed because of something that happened. There is no good for little Pearl. She has given up, hasn't she? There is no path to guide us out of this dismal maze. Oh, maze, take note of that word. That's going to come up later. So this maze, she is utterly hopeless here, right? That nothing good could possibly ever come from this. Woman, I could well nigh pity thee, said Roger Chillingworth, unable to restrain a thrill of admiration, too. And so we wonder what he's admiring. For there was a quality almost majestic in the despair that she possessed. So this revealing of her true feelings seems to inspire his admiration. Thou hadst great elements. Peradventure, hadst thou met earlier with a better love than mine, this evil had not been. So he's recognizing that something happened, but it's circumstances that caused the evil, not any choice on his part, he seems to think. I pity thee for the good that has been wasted in thy nature. So she is naturally good, and yet through punishment, she seems to have done something else, although she is still good to society. But we also know that she is no longer a woman, as we saw in the last chapter. "And I thee," answered Hester Prynne, "for the hatred that has transformed a wise and just man to a fiend. Wilt thou yet purge it out of thee?" Oh, she recognizes that he has agency there, that he can actually make choices in order to get rid of this evil. "And be once more human? If not for his sake, then doubly for thine own." It's in his best interest to give this stuff up. "Forgive and leave further retribution to the power that claims it." So this is that one path out of that maze, is forgiveness. Is that one way that he could still have hope for himself. I said, "But now there could be no good event for him, or thee, or me, who are wandering together in this gloomy maze of evil, and stumbling at every step over the guilt," okay, so that's the cause of everything, "wherewith we have strewn our path. It is not so. There might be good for thee, and thee alone, since thou hast been deeply wronged, and hast it at thy will to pardon." Okay, so here that's when you're wronged, but you forgive, potentially, that there's a way out. "Wilt thou give up that only privilege? Wilt thou reject that priceless benefit?" And priceless meaning like that it's his soul. It has nothing to do with this world. "Peace, Hester, peace," replied the old man with the gloomy sternness. "It is not granted me to pardon. I have no such power as thou tellest me of." So he still feels helpless. He does not feel like that is within his power. "My old faith, long forgotten, comes back to me and explains all that we do and all we suffer. By thy first step awry didst thou plant the germ of evil." So there's that blame, that it's somebody else's fault. "But since that moment, it has all been a dark necessity. Ye that have wronged me are not sinful, save in a kind of typical illusion." So he recognizes that her sin is not particularly evil, right? But just that it's kind of, that it was a wrong done. "Neither am I fiend-like, who have snatched a friend's office from his hands. It is our fate." So here we question, does Hawthorne believe in fate? Is fate actually true, or can we make those choices? "Let that black blossom flower as it may." This reminds us of those weeds and that potentially colorful rose at the entrance to the prison, and that dark flower of society is crime and prison. "Now go thy ways, and deal as thou wilt with yonder man." He waved his hand and betook himself again to his employment of gathering herbs. So you'll notice that how he started in this chapter, he has ended. He is not going to recognize any change or ownership.